Good morning everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Saturday morning for me, 9:30. The weather has been really great in the past couple of days. Today the forecast says it will be 29 degrees, so I've decided to make this sort of a picnic day. I'm thinking of going to a park, which is actually one of my favorite places in the area where I live. I will take a blanket with me. I also have a hammock, so I will take that one as well. I want to be as comfortable as possible. I will take some sandwiches and some slices of banana bread for dessert. I made it last evening. I'm super excited and I really want to make the most of this day. I've been waiting for these temperatures all winter. Of course, I'll take a book with me as well. I'm thinking of The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. Let me grab it. This has been on my wish list for quite some time. I bought it recently when I found it at a really good price for a book in English. They can be quite pricey. I almost exclusively buy my books when they are on sale. Unfortunately, we do not have here many options for used bookstores with books in English. So, if you've watched my previous video, you know that the books behind me are basically my unread shelf, and I think you cannot see the top shelf because there I have some more books. Earlier this morning I was thinking about what book to take with me. I recently finished reading Paradise Lost, and honestly, except for maybe one or two books, I don't think I have some light books right now. I know that The Bell Jar deals with some pretty heavy themes like mental health and society's expectations when it comes to women. I also know that readers' opinions are very diverse. I've seen people who absolutely loved this book, and then others who cannot understand why it's so praised. I'm actually really intrigued by this, and I think it makes me want to read it even more. So yeah, I'll take The Bell Jar with me. It's pretty short, so let's see how much I managed to read from it today. So I'm in the park right now. I'm in my hammock. It's super comfortable, so I'm really happy that I took it with me. I feel a bit awkward to speak in public. There are quite a few people around me. So here is my book, and I will now start reading it. So I finished reading the first chapter, the first 13 pages, and I want to say that I really like the writing so far. It's very lyrical. I mean, there is no wonder. Sylvia Plath was a poet after all. Let me just read you some of the quotes that I already highlighted. So this one I liked very much. I felt very still and very empty, the way the eye of a tornado must feel, moving dully along in the middle of the surrounding hullabaloo. She also has some extremely beautiful descriptions, and one really stuck with me. She had an interesting, slightly sweaty smell that reminded me of those scallopy leaves of sweet fern you break off and crush between your fingers for the musk of them. So yeah, I think it's going well so far. I really want to see what comes next. Good evening, I'm back home, already in my bed and ready to go to sleep. I would like to give you a short update on my reading. I managed to read half of the book so far, and As I said before, I like the way it's written a lot. Sylvia Plath had such a wonderful choice of words that every time she described something, I could feel all my senses engaged, ready to put me in Sylvia's and her character's shoes for an intense and emotional roller coaster of experiences. It's like watching Paris from an express caboose, heading in the opposite direction. Every second the city gets smaller and smaller, only you feel it's really you getting smaller and smaller, and lonelier, rushing away from all those lights and that excitement at about 1,000,000 miles an hour. If I close my eyes, I can picture myself on that train, looking out the window and watching how the lively city vanishes before my eyes. The exaggeration of 1,000,000 miles an hour shows the hopelessness felt in that moment. It's such an intimate scene that one could feel like an intruder for witnessing it. I knew perfectly well the cars were making a noise, and the people in them and behind the lit windows of the buildings were making a noise, and the river was making a noise, but I couldn't hear a thing. The city hung in my window, flat as a poster, glittering and blinking, but it might just as well not have been there at all, for the good it did me. Again, watching the world through a window, but instead of seeing it getting smaller and smaller from a rushing train, she's now in the midst of it. A silent motion picture that showcases the struggle of losing touch with reality, of feeling isolated from a flat but glittering and blinking society that one wishes to fit into. It wasn't the nice kind of rain that rinses you clean, but the sort of rain I imagine they must have in Brazil. It flew straight down from the sky in drops the size of coffee saucers and hit the hot sidewalks with a hiss that sent clouds of steam riding up from the gleaming dark concrete. Sylvia Plath had a gift of creating movie-like scenes, and this one in particular reminds me of The Breakfast at Tiffany's ending scene, where New York is grey and gloomy, with Audrey Hepburn and George Peppard soaking wet from the pouring rain. The room hovered around me with great gentleness, as if the chairs and the tables and the walls were withholding their weight out of sympathy for my sudden frailty. And the door took her place like a sheet of blank paper. And then a larger sheet of paper took the place of the door, and I drifted toward it and smiled myself to sleep. Knowing that the bell jar is partly autobiographical makes it even more authentic. I found myself many times sympathetic towards the main character. For instance, reading these lines makes me want to comfort this person that feels so hopeless and looks around for any moral and emotional support. However, I have to be honest and say there are also aspects I do not like at all here. As sympathetic as I can be towards Sylvia and her character, I cannot turn a blind eye to her racist, bigoted, superficial or snobbish comments. I find no excuse for such behavior, and the fact that she wrote this book in the midst of the civil rights movement makes it even worse. I will give you a few examples. I noticed a big, smudgy-eyed Chinese woman staring idiotically into my face. It was only me, of course. This comes in relation with a previous remark when she said she looked yellow as a Chinaman. I hated coming downstairs sweaty-handed and curious every Saturday night and having some senior introduce me to her aunt's best friend's son and finding some pale, mushroomy fellow with protruding ears or buck teeth or a bad leg. I didn't think I deserved it. After all, I wasn't crippled in any way. It's even worse when I reread this. The way she said she doesn't deserve it, as if people with disabilities belong only with people with disabilities. A few pages later, she talks about meeting a man who would somehow fit her physical appearance requirements. Of course, Constantine was much too short, but in his own way he was handsome, with light brown hair and dark blue eyes and a lively, challenging expression. He was so tan and had such good teeth. Immediately after this, she says that this Constantine won't mind if I'm too tall and don't know enough languages and haven't been to Europe. He'll see through all that stuff to what I really am. So, when it comes to herself, she wants people to forget about all the superficial things and recognize who she really is under the surface. Yes, I will sympathize with all her struggles, but I will also criticize her behavior when I think it's wrong. Okay, it's getting pretty late now. I said I will give you a short update and I got myself carried away. I will see you again once I finish this book. Hello, it's been a couple of weeks since I last filmed myself. I managed to finish the bell jar in the meantime. I liked it overall, but I have to admit I felt that the second part was not at the level of the first. In this part, the mental health issues are addressed and explored, and I know it might sound strange, but I would have liked to see even more of that. I would have liked for Sylvia Plath to take me into that bell jar of hers and show me how the world looks through a distorted glass. Don't get me wrong, it's good, it's really good what she did here, but as the novel progressed, I felt she was kind of leaving her readers behind. She focused more on relating events and the introspection, the portrayal of her inner world felt more like a secondary act. In a way, I think I get why. She isolated herself from the real world. She couldn't trust anybody. There is one particular line that really stuck with me. The more hopeless you were, the further away they hid you. I can only imagine how this must feel. She was in a constant struggle. She wanted to run away, to disappear from this world. I fixed my eyes on the largest cloud, as if when it passed out of sight, I might have the good luck to pass with it. But then she also wanted someone to see her struggles and to save her. Ultimately, she was her own savior. I thought I would swim out until I was too tired to swim back. As I paddled on, my heartbeat boomed like a dull motor in my ears. I am. Esther Greenwood, Sylvia's protagonist, is not a conventional heroine, and I think that's what makes her human. As I said last time, I can sympathize with her, I can understand her struggles and even try to relate with her, but I also need to acknowledge the many faults she has. Often she's not a likable character, and her hardships are no excuse for her behavior. She is racist, mean, homophobic, bigoted, and I found this hypocritical and in contradiction with all the expectations she has when it comes to her own persona in relation with others. Nevertheless, there are a few memorable fragments I would like to highlight that I think describe perfectly the struggles of a 20th century woman and her inability to fit in the reality of that respective society, which most probably contributed to the decline of her mental health. I wanted change and excitement and to shoot off in all directions myself, like the colored arrows from a 4th of July rocket. The mention of Independence Day is not random. It tells us she wanted to be independent herself. She wanted to be her own woman, as she later put into words. She dreaded losing herself in the shadow of a man, and I think the next paragraph is probably the most suggestive of how she felt under society's pressures when it came to women. Once when I visited Buddy, I found Mrs. Willard braiding a rug out of strips of wool from Mr. Willard's old suits. She'd spent weeks on that rug, and I had admired the tweedy browns and greens and blues patterning the braid. But after Mrs. Willard was through, Instead of hanging the rug on the wall the way I would have done, she put it down in place of her kitchen mat. And in a few days it was soiled and dull and indistinguishable from any mat you could buy for under $1 in the 5 and 10. And I knew that in spite of all the roses and kisses and restaurant dinners a man showered on a woman before he married her, what he secretly wanted when the wedding service ended was for her to flatten out underneath his feet like Mrs. Willard's kitchen mat. In the end, I can say I really appreciate this book, with the exceptions I mentioned before. And even those exceptions, I think, are the ones that train our critical thinking. I don't think we should read only books where we fully relate to the characters. What makes The Bell Jar a modern classic is its representation of feminism and especially of mental health. For the period it was written in, the awareness it raises on mental health was groundbreaking. We've come a long way since then, but even today this is often considered a sensitive and somehow shameful topic. But I want to emphasize that depression is not a sign of weakness, and nobody should feel ashamed for seeking help and support. We should treat it as seriously as we treat a bad cough or a physical pain that doesn't go away. That said, this is not an easy book to read, and anyone going through a difficult time themselves should be careful with it. I think it has a hopeful tone in the end, and it might be healing in certain ways, but it might also be a trigger for some powerful negative emotions. Okay, that's it with my experience with The Bell Jar so far. Now that I'm through with it, I will definitely choose something lighter for my next read. See you next time.